International. This is Craig coming to you with another wonderful Craig Connects conversation on a Friday morning at my time, Friday afternoon for you. Sabah, Fara, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us. Sabah, maybe as a way to get started, first of all, thank you very much for joining me for this conversation. You and I have spoken many times. You know, I'm a real believer and an advocate of cash programming, so I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure for me to get to have this conversation and to get to also talk about me and cash.
Great. Well, that's a good way to start. So you are our Global Cash Program Advisor. Um, Saba, maybe could you tell us a little bit about your roots, your background? How did you get to cash, and how did you get to Relief International?
Okay, so I've started cash. So my first cash program, my first exposition to cash programming was in Mali in 2013. And I was a project manager working with an organization called Solidarité Internationale. And
Uh-huh.
um, and it was my first project. So it was basically cash in hand. And we had a team going to distribute cash by boat, because when we undertook
Wow.
the risk analysis, basically we figure out that the most appropriate delivery mechanism was cash in hand, and the safest option to avoid any kind of attack was to provide it through boat. So North Mali, Niger River, and like people
Yeah.
distributing basically with boat and motorbikes. So it was my first exposition to cash transfer. Before that, I did in-kind distribution in food security in Haiti and in DRC. But then I only did cash since then at several
Right.
positions. So I did after that a lot of, at least for 2 years, consortium facilitation. So basically still in Mali, but also a little bit in Senegal after that. I was the director of a consortium that aimed at doing cash transfer program, and a little bit connection with social protection system, and very much linked to early warning systems and food security, actually. So basically mostly targeting the lean season to make sure that there was nutrition and food security. Um,
Mhm. Great.
yeah. After that,
Great.
I worked.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, please.
I
No.
Yeah. After that, I worked in Yemen and Iraq and Turkey with different organization. And my last position was in Turkey between 2017 and 2019, and I was ECO TA. And then I applied for this position with RI while I was still employed with ECO, and I joined RI in July 2019.
Great. And here we are.
Yes.
Uh, well, that's interesting. So you have a deep background in cash program. I wonder if you can describe for us, because I had this feeling when I saw the power of what cash can do, particularly when it compares to a classic sort of distribution of goods, right? I wonder if you can describe that moment where you went, "Oh, I see." Like you kind of the light came on for you about the power of cash programming. Was there any one moment for you?
um, yes, for me, I think the one way I got to really love cash was because when it comes to cash, the first thing that is amazing is like how much you invest in understanding what do people do and the type of impact you're having on people. Because somehow, because you have less control on how people will use it, then you need to really understand and make sure that you are meeting your objectives. So this was one the first area that I really liked about cash. But then I think it's quite, it went to another level when I attended myself the first cash distribution, because literally people were coming to the cash distribution dancing. I mean, people
Yeah.
do love cash
Wow.
so
Yes.
much
So do
that
I.
they were coming dancing, and thanking us so much, and they were really really happy. So that's was really something that I really liked, and all the technicity about it, like needed to understand the market, needed to everything is evidence based, like how much we give, is the market going to be able to absorb it, what's the best way to deliver, what type of risk I expose people to potentially. So protection is also a large component of the design of cash transfer programming. So nothing really is left to the unknown, and everything has to be apprehended, because we need to
Yeah.
make sure we do not harm people, we do not harm market, and we maximize the impact and the good impact somehow on people.
Well, Saba, let's go into that for a second, into the technical part of what you have to do when you're considering a cash intervention. We're not saying that cash is the exact right thing for every single setting, right? We're saying sometimes it's the perfect tool, and sometimes the distribution is still like, what do you have to do in order to understand whether or not cash is the right tool at the right moment?
So you have to understand the needs and the gaps. So basically, what do people need? What is their priority? What is already being covered by them or not? And then you have to understand if those needs can be met through markets, basically. So how much do I need? What is my type of need? And then what the market has, and also to make sure that meaningful access, or people do not face any other barrier to accessing those needs. So basically,
Right.
what I like to say usually is like cash does not buy protection. So basically, if people have several barriers to accessing the needs we want them to access, like one would be economic, but one would be like, I cannot go to the market because I face risk of being attacked, or even the market is not physically accessible, or maybe if I give cash, then I would be creating issues like people being attacked or stuff. I mean, yeah, if there are different barrier other than financial barriers, so usually cash is not appropriate because it can pose risk, or it's just going to be not going to be useful. Yeah, the people's mobility, freedom of movement is a critical area. Without that being insured safely, meaningfully, then cash is not going to be an appropriate tool. It's going to be maybe the other way around. It's going to pose risk and different and other risks to people.
Yeah. That's that. So that market analysis that we have to do prior to starting a program is such an important piece of the whole thing. Is that, uh, and I want to get to the question of, how do we at Relief International begin to think about cash, more regularly, and how do we build this into our toolbox of things that we think about doing more systematically. But what does that analysis look like? How difficult is that to do? How involved is that for teams to do before they do before they suggest a cash intervention to one of our donors? Can you say a little bit about the analysis itself? What do we have to do?
Um, Understand and quantify the needs, the gaps. Understand if those needs can be met by the market. Look at what are the delivery options as well. So how I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna channel the cash to people, and we look at the availability of financial service provider, because usually we prefer to uh, externalize the delivery of cash. Sometimes it happens that we do not have any other option, but what we do look at first is the financial service provider that are in place. if people have access to it, but also what are the prerequisites. Sometimes, there is something we call the know your customer policy, because we have to deal with banking system regulation. So, and sometimes people that we are serving are not necessarily in possession of official documentation, because they had to leave their houses, or maybe they faced a major shock that I mean, that broke or destroyed the IDs. So we need to look at those aspects. Any specific protection issues, like am I going to expose them if I use a financial service provider? So yeah, those are the aspects I look at, and then I blend everything, and I decide if I give cash or voucher or in kind. I decide what is the delivery mechanism. I decide what is going to be the transfer value based on a minimum expenditure basket. The objective of the program is quite important as well, and it's something that is definitely important for RI, because we do not do a lot of multipurpose cash assistance. We do actually in developing like more and strengthening and systemizing the utilization of cash transfer programming. We will probably look into more sectorial cash, and in particular health, which is one of the first area that we work on, and one of the first aspects that we will be developing and strengthening at RI. So yeah, we look at that's how we usually work about it. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Sabah. Can you give an example? Let's pivot to cash programming. Really finish
Yeah.
national existing we have. Can you give a couple of examples of programs that we have ongoing right now, so our teams who are listening can get a feel for the kinds of things we're currently doing?
Yeah. So I will start with one of the oldest cash program we have. It's in Lebanon, and it's about education. So we basically the same as for other sector, but quite particular when we look at sectorial cash, because basically we are supporting like we are providing different type of support. Some are being soft component, and we do remedial education, we do homework support, and in the meantime, we're addressing financial barrier for people to access education services. So basically, because usually sectorial cash comes in the form of what is popularly known as cash plus, we usually have soft components that we need to add to addressing the financial barrier people are facing. So for the cash we are providing, we cover costs such as transportation and school supplies, basically. And we also support costs related to snacking and all this aspect that are actually that people that are socioeconomically vulnerable cannot necessarily meet, and that represent somehow a barrier for them to access school education services. The other example is, I would say, still in Lebanon, because I was there and I supported this program some time ago, and because maybe it's a great potential for us moving forward, because it's about health and nutrition. Nutrition being one of the aspects that we look at very much, and we do actually very much, is basically people are provided with the basic food items, like the basic foods such as cereal, pulses, and stuff like that. But for people that do actually face a very specific have specific physiologic needs, like children under 5 and pregnant and lactating women, there is a
Mhm.
need, there is an importance given to having them having a good food diversity. So basically, in discussion with BHA in Lebanon, we were granted a pilot program where basically, in addition to having this basic food covered by other actors, and namely, I think WFP, we do top up to allow those individuals in the household that have specific physiologic needs to have an adequate food diversity, so that they can have a good conditions to grow, and they basically to avoid them being undernourished, and not having adequate food consumption, given the specificity of their food needs, like we're talking about children under 5 and pregnant and lactating women. So this is a good area for us to
Yeah.
develop our capacity, and also because we are supporting not only Syrians, we are also supporting Lebanese, and we are developing some kind of strategic also linkages with the Ministry of Social Affairs, and this makes us somehow jump into the space of social protection, which is quite important
Yeah.
lately, that was really brought into the humanitarian sector by the cash word, and that really allows to look into a strategic partnership to strengthen, to jump into the system strengthening also side of things, and also to make linkages between social protection, social work, and also nutrition sensitive activities, and outcome and action.
I love I love the description of that, Saba, because you know, about 70% of the programs we do around the world are related to health and nutrition in some way. So, you know, building that tool in a way to target, you know, those moms, pregnant, lactating women, as well as families who really need that nutritional focus, is really an interesting tool that we need to consider. Why do you think we don't do that more often? What do you think is keeping us as an organization from really focusing in on, for example, Cash for Health as a tool that we build into most of our programs?
Actually, I would be maybe a bit unfair if I would say that we don't do cash for health a lot. We do actually do a lot of that, and we have cash components into almost all of our health programs,
Uh-huh.
because basically because we provide primarily health education, most of sorry, not education, but health service, like primary healthcare services. When people do need to have some specialized and secondary services, we do refer them to this type of needs, and for to make sure that they will have access and they will not face any financial barrier, we do cover for the costs that are associated with this referral. So this is something that we call cash for referral, and it
Oh.
aims at supporting and providing this financial support for them to to be able to access those secondary services. We're talking about transportation, we're talking about per diem, and we cover for their accommodation cost and food cost. So this is really much embedded and comes quite organically and systematically into our programming. But for the other side, maybe the more, like, to tackle aspects more broadly, or to tackle other type of health needs, I think that the limitation we have as an organization, somehow I would say, or why maybe we do not consider it systematically, is that probably cash is not embedded or integrated enough into our corporate reflexes. Like when there is an emergency occurring, we do not think about cash, and I think somehow, to be fair and honest with us, I think we do not have enough resources, like human resources, to really be able to address or to look at all the possible options we have when an emergency occurs. And I think
Mhm.
that all our resources are somehow going to health, and I'm not sure it leaves more space to consider other aspects. But maybe what we could look at strengthening, and what we could look at, and we do actually look at strengthening to be able to have more reflexes around cash, is to maybe have it more integrated or systematized into our decision making and maybe emergencies, but also to look at option to have staff being more trained, or yeah, to be more comfortable with cash programming, and also to be more to accept cash programming more than they actually do for the time being, just maybe by providing some trainings, because we do have a lot of staff that have a background in health,
Hmm.
and usually they're not, it might not be the profile that would be systematically or naturally thinking about cash programming. It's another set of skills that they have. So probably if we could maybe sensitize more, or maybe provide some kind of training, or maybe for me to work closely when there is a cash opportunity with them, just like I did in Lebanon with people that did not
Yeah.
necessarily have prior exposure to cash, because it comes also with a lot of requirement. Is cash programming is really, all the precondition that I've quoted before, and all the things that we have to look at, and it's quite complex type of programming. So, and we might not want people to get traumatized with cash, which could happen. You try, you never was not really exposed to it before, and then you are like, yeah, it's too complicated, I feel I didn't do well. And yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe to be more, yeah, to accompany people way more in maybe a step-by-step approach.
Yeah.
um, and we do also need to work probably on having toolkit developed for each and every sector, uh, for people to really be equipped to look at
Yeah.
cash and embedded cash into each sector, because I really feel that this is the direction we'll be taking, cash for the sector that we work in, and maybe less
Yeah.
multipurpose cash assistance. That is something that I don't feel for the time being that we are ready to really embrace, at least at scale.
Yeah.
Even though it's not my wish. I mean, I love multipurpose cash, I love social protection. I did a lot of that in the past, but I feel that for the time being, or maybe not yet, or maybe as a first, as a priority, maybe we could consider looking at this specific sector specific cash programming.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let me. I just want to share this quick story with you.
Yeah.
I first got exposed to cash programming after the Indian Ocean tsunami in
Mm,
2005,
mm,
and seeing how powerful that was to put cash in the hands of people, right? Rather than the recovery being in the hands of the international organization, the cash puts it in the hands of the families and communities that are the ones that are the survivors of the event. And after the earthquake in the major earthquake, I believe it was 2015, in Nepal. I remember being there at a time, and I happened to be there when there was a traditional distribution of non-food items
mm,
happening and a cash intervention at the same time. Like you literally had two lines. People, there was a truck, they were handing a huge pan and blankets and buckets and all the things after a district, right? And then next to it, there was a small little shop where they were doing the cash distributions through the shop. So people would bring in their thing and proof that they were in the program, and they would walk out with cash. And I remember seeing people get their pans and their blankets, and they look over at the shop, and they go over there and they try to sell those things to get
yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, you
Yeah.
know what? The point, it's not about us. It's
Yeah.
about those families and putting the power in their hands to make the kinds of decisions they need to make. And for me, a light really came on about the future of the kind of work we do. Um, Sabah, this is a great opportunity. We imagine that we're all in one big room here, which we are one big virtual room of all of our country directors and our program leaders and all those folks. What would you like to tell them so that that light comes on a little bit about the power of building in, as you're describing, cash interventions into most things we do, rather than saying, I wonder if we should do cash, say, why wouldn't we do cash? What would you like to say to
For
them?
me, it's as simple as this. I think we should not wish for the people we serve something different than what we wish for ourselves. And my question would be,
Ah,
do you want your salary to be paid in cash, voucher, or in kind? I mean, it's quite it's
that
quite clear. I mean, so yeah, that's one thing for me. And the other one is that for me, we need to provide the assistance in alignment with people's preference, and people's preference usually goes to cash. So it's almost our professional ethics. I mean, for as humanitarian worker or as service provider of humanitarian assistance, our professional ethic is accountability to affected population, and I think that this is it. I mean, we need to be accountable to them and provide them with the assistance that they want and that they prefer. So it's as simple as that.
it's as simple as that. Yeah, I
Mm,
love that point of, well, what would you want? What would you
mm,
want for yourself? What would you want
mm,
for your family members?
mm.
You want the option, you want the power of making the decision. I already have a pan.
Yeah,
I need to save that money for the doctor or for education or whatever. So that's exactly right, Saba. Well, I really want to thank you so much, first of
yeah,
all, for everything that you do at Relief International, for being our global cash program advisor, and for the support you give our programs around the world. And then second, thank you so much for this conversation. I really have enjoyed it. The
yeah.
power
Thank
of
you.
cash programming at Relief International is unquestionable.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this space. It's much appreciated, and yeah. Thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed the great conversation with you, and yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Saba. Take care.
Bye.